Right, first video. I'm Sean. That's Katie. I'm Sean. A talkie video. I haven't done very many talkie videos.
Okay.
Alright, and I thought this video was just going to be called Let's Talk About the DCEU.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of news...
You didn't prepare me at all for this video,
No, I didn't.
by the
I've
way.
just sprung it on you. Just because I want to get opinions. I'm going to tell you newses, and you're going to...
Okay.
Opinions. You're the opinions on the newses.
Okay.
Alright? So obviously there's the big news. Which,
the heartbreaking one.
yeah, quite sad actually, because...
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, it was a little while ago. Black Adam came out, post-credit scene. No, I haven't seen it. But
I think everyone knows by now. If you haven't seen it, it was spoiled pretty much instantly.
yeah, the internet went loopy. Post-credit scene, Superman turns up. It's Henry Cavill. It's none of the silly Shazam thing where you
Just
see
chest.
where you just see the S and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
It was actually him, and it was quite cool.
And then he confirmed it afterwards that he was coming back.
And he came out and confirmed that he was coming back as Superman. And then literally like 3 days later, he said he had a meeting with James Gunn, who's the new head of DC. Yeah, and basically he's been charged with cleaning up the DC movie universe. And that's live action. He's not, as far as I know, he's not touching the animated stuff. And one of his first decisions was basically to hold a meeting with all of the main characters, and unfortunately Henry Cavill is officially out as Superman.
Which is damn depressing, because at the same time he also confirmed that he wasn't going to be coming back for Witcher after this next season, and that Liam Hemsworth would be taking over. And not that I have anything against Liam Hemsworth, just we're going to be having 3 seasons of Henry Cavill as Geralt. And then they did this. They just pulled an absolute swerve, and he's now potentially, depending on what happens with Witcher now, he's potentially not going to have either. And
people were like, it's okay though because it clears him for James Bond. But he's not the favourite for James Bond anymore. Aaron Taylor Johnson's the favourite for James Bond. And it's not confirmed yet, but Aaron Taylor Johnson's had all the meetings with the broccoli lass, the head lass who's in charge of it. And it is depressing. But in the same span, there's been no word on any of the others apart from, of all people, Ezra Miller. And apparently Ezra Miller might be staying on as the Flash. And in that, my thing was just, how can you possibly justify getting rid of Henry Cavill, who's never caused any issues, and then keep Ezra Miller on? If anything, surely people are going to be more desperate for Henry, because he's...
People it was really positive reactions because aside from obviously looking the part, he is actually a good actor, and he played him really well.
Yeah.
So I don't... Yeah.
And if I think about it, unless you count Ben Affleck's brief appearance at Suicide Squad, I think Henry Cavill's been in the most movies, hasn't he? Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, both the Justice Leagues. He was in Shazam. Let's not pretend that wasn't his body. Just cut out his head. He was in Black Adam.
That's
6. Wonder Woman was in what? 5. Flash was in 2, 3 at most.
Do you know what it is, right? And I have mixed feelings, because while I like the fact that DC seems to be going okay, let's appoint someone as like the head or whatever you want to call him, and let's organise this universe. And I think James Gunn's going to do a really good job, but I'm also like, oh, Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
I'd liked Henry Cavill, but I guess they're probably wanting to like start have a clean slate. But then in that same respect, I'm like, well, there's been the Batman going on, and that's been confirmed to have, 3 movies?
Yeah. So in the next...
So then it's like, is that safe? There's going to be another Joker coming out. There's going to, like...
In the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be another Batman film, which is confirmed. There's going to be another Joker film, which is confirmed, which apparently aren't going to be a part of this extended universe.
Right.
And...
So they're kind of just...
They're splitting off, apparently. The supposed plan is they're splitting off. There's going to be They're not calling it the extended universe anymore, which is what the DCEU stood for. DC Extended Universe.
Yeah.
It's going to be the sort of... the singular worlds, I suppose you would call them. Things like the Batman, Joker. And then there's going to be the long story sort of It's basically the extended universe. It is the extended universe. Like a bunch of stories told over a multi-film.
The issue is that are they actually just going to start? Because if they're going to do this right, I would have a lot more respect for them if they just said, okay, none of the actors are coming back. We're going to get all new actors. We're just going to leave that in the past. It is what it is. We can't do anything to change it. It is
Clean slate.
Yeah, clean slate. All new actors, new universe, new stories. I would be like, okay, fair enough. Like, it's crap for some of the actors, but at least they're that they're actually going to try and structure this, and it's not going to be here, there, everywhere.
Yeah. It's just strange, isn't it? Because at first I was like, well, if they're keeping Ezra Miller, maybe they're going down the Flashpoint sort of look.
Yeah.
And we know that the film is called Flashpoint. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Which is basically, for those of you who don't know, and we are going to watch them. That's my chosen movie. We're going to watch all the DC animated films, and you can pick up whatever movie you want to watch. They basically did the Flashpoint and essentially reset everything. That was how that was sort of designed, and I would understand, but again, when they did the Flashpoint, the guy who voiced the Flashpoint changed as well. The Flash changed as well. Everything changed, so it was kind of like...
What was it? He stopped his parents...
his mother getting killed, yeah. And, it was a great story, and it did a really good job of cleaning the slate, and they started again with new versions of those heroes. And if they're going to do that, fair enough. But then it's kind of like, you're just kind of missing the opportunity. Like, I feel like the extended universe has problems with it, obviously. And there's... Nobody might want to hear it, but Zack Snyder caused a few problems in the DCEU. And I might do a video.
Not even necessarily Justice League and that whole thing, but even Batman vs Superman
from the beginning,
was not all everyone thought it was going to be.
No.
And even some people try to argue that it is.
Yeah.
People saying that the extended version is better, and that might be the case, but it was still just a dog's dinner of a movie.
It's not. I've watched.
It was just producer import after producer import, and that was the problem. Not necessarily Zack Snyder.
Yeah, but there was problems with Man of Steel as well. While I still think actually Man of Steel is probably the best entry in the extended universe. An argument could be made for the Snyder cut.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of problems with that movie that people don't want to admit to, and they probably will admit to it in the next 3 or 4 years. But there's a lot of problems in that film as well.
Yeah. But then there's also been some good movies though.
Oh, yeah.
And like talking about James Gunn, like the Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
So is that now? I wonder if it's his kind of ideal movie, isn't it? Kind of no limit. Anyone can die. I wonder if he's gonna maybe try and do just a whole story on that. Maybe focus a little more on the villains.
Maybe.
Have the actual build up and go forward.
Yeah. It's sad, like the saddest part is that Henry Cavill's obviously enjoyed being Superman, and he seemed so thrilled when he was announced that it was going to be continuing.
For me, when he announced it, the fact he was giving up The Witcher, which I thought was his ideal role, being like the gamer buff that he is, I was kind of like, oh god, he must have either offered him a lot, or he just loved the role that much that he had to be back.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like.
He said he is free to focus on a Warhammer universe, which is very Henry Cavill-ish.
Yeah, he's producing that, isn't he?
Yeah, but it is kind of like, I know a lot of people might turn around and say, well, there will be another Superman, and they'll probably be good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, but in my mind, at least in this generation, I'm sorry to all those Christopher Reeves fans, but I didn't grow up with Christopher Reeves. I grew up first with Brandon Routh, who only had one good scene as Superman. Come at me. Then Henry Cavill, and it was kind of like when I went to see Man of Steel, you can identify with this version of Superman. You know what I mean? In a weird way, considering who he is.
An alien.
Yeah, and the characters were good. It was a good start, and then it just kind of seemed to really dive. Like, I just did not enjoy Batman vs Superman at all. And it
was too soon. It was Ben Affleck's first movie as the Batman. We didn't really know what Batman we were getting. One minute he was like really aggressive, the next minute he wasn't, and then it was like they were fighting, and you were kind of like, I understand why they were fighting, but we haven't had enough time to see actual, like, we saw a few buildings getting destroyed, a few people get hurt, yeah, okay. He sees him, Brandon a couple of people.
Yep.
and all that stuff, and it's like there's no I feel like, okay, fair enough, but it's been like we had like a 20 minute sequence of seeing that.
There was too many big storylines in that film. That's the problem. Like, they had to introduce Wonder Woman, and like that was before Wonder Woman came out, so it was like we had to introduce Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
We had to introduce 3 characters that just got sort of almost name dropped. Then there was the Batman vs Superman storyline, which isn't like that at all in the comic. Like, Superman doesn't die afterwards.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's the Doomsday angle, which is kind of like, well, that's 3 or 4 different storylines all in one film, and the film might be 3 hours long for all we know, but it's just a big scramble, and it didn't feel like he knew which version of each character that he wanted.
That's what I mean. I feel like you can just hear like the producers going, okay, so you need to introduce Wonder Woman because we're going to be doing a Wonder Woman movie. They're like, okay, fair enough. Okay, then you need to introduce Doomsday, and they're like, how in the living hell can we introduce this character in this one movie, and have a whole arc?
I do hope that there is a sort of long-term plan, and while I can sort of trust James Gunn to do a good job, because he hasn't done. I mean, he gave us Scooby-Doo, for God's sake. So I do trust him, but it does just feel a bit sort of almost depressing that Henry Cavill's not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a bigger deal than it sounds.
I feel like it'll be a lot worse if it doesn't do well and the movies aren't that good and it hasn't improved, because then I'll be like, you got rid of Henry Cavill for this. But I hope to God that it's good. Yeah. We need some good DC.
We already know that Batwoman got cancelled, and that was post-production, so it was close to coming out.
I feel so bad for that actress. I don't even know her name. I feel so, like, imagine going through all that. You're like, oh yeah, there was talks about her like becoming like the new like
new Batman.
Like basically taking the mantle of Batman and all this stuff, and she was like going to be doing all this stuff, and then all of a sudden it was just no, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah. But then it's also that they need to figure out which version of each character they're doing, because supposedly the plan was always to have Batwoman, but then Michael Keaton would show up.
He would be the one to like pass the mantle down.
He would replace Ben Affleck, and then Michael Keaton would pass it on to the Batwoman. But then Ben Affleck was rumoured to be doing another movie. He's in Aquaman 2, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of like, it's just felt like this was so long where everything's just disjointed. You know, there's like decisions being made on the fly before the film. So while it is a good thing that the DC universe is, while it's a good thing that they're finally sort of putting together a big plan, this also feels like a giant disjointed decision. You know, just getting rid of, one of the big 3.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know what's happening with Gal Gadot yet. We don't know what's happening with Ben Affleck. But my thing would be if you're going down the route of getting younger people to play these characters so they can play them for, 10 years like Robert Downey Jr. did. Who are you going to get? Who are you going to cast? Surely you can't keep Ben Affleck on playing this version of Batman who's older and rougher and it's...
That's what I mean, like if they go, okay, clean slate, we're going to get a bunch of new actors, don't even necessarily have to be well-known actors. I would be happy for them to just do like unknown actors. They all look the part, they're all actually good actors, and then they follow them from like a younger age, and you go, and then you eventually see the Ben Affleck Batman where he's a bit rougher, kind of like grumpy old man kind of thing, and it's like
The Dark Knight Returns. That's what that one's called.
Yeah, it's like I would be fine with that. It's now there's just this uncertainty because like are they going to keep Gal Gadot on? Are they going to keep Ben Affleck? If they do, and then they've got rid of Henry Cavill, then you're like, well, why did you make that decision?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, Ben Affleck's older than Henry Cavill. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why was that decision made?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, then what about Ezra Miller? Because, I mean, fair enough, he's apologised now, and people have kind of just seemed to have forgotten about it on the internet, but like, he still did all this stuff, there's still all this controversy around him.
And there's
and it's like, are you wanting to keep an actor like that on? Because he could jeopardise the movies. There'll be a lot of people that probably won't want to see a movie that he's in. And as blunt, as horrible as it might sound to some people, but it's true.
And the other 2 are obviously Cyborg and what's his name again? Ray Fisher. Is that his name?
I think so, something like that, yeah.
He's had his own battles with DC in its own sense. He had a lot of trouble with the stuff that Joss Whedon was doing. So it's kind of like, well, do we bring him back? Honestly, I thought he was the best part of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I like this sort of internal battle being played up on the screen.
Yeah.
But then the other one, the last one's Aquaman, and it's like, well, do you get rid of Jason Momoa? There's not many people who are going to make Aquaman as cool as Jason Momoa could make, you know?
I know, that's what I mean. I feel like... Try to think in the head, so like, imagine you're someone that's not a superhero fan and just watches the movies casually. Trying to keep up with the stories when there's some actors that are the same, some actors that are different. You know, it's going to be hard enough restarting the universe, essentially.
Yeah.
Are they going to take the risk of going, okay, we're going to keep these actors, even though they're good actors, are we going to keep them? And try and go forward with them?
Yeah. I think from a monetary standpoint as well, it's like, wait, so you're getting rid of Henry Cavill, who's a draw. Let's say they clean the circuit, you're getting rid of Gal Gadot, who's, you know, a first solo movie, got past the $1 billion mark, so she's obviously a draw. I think the second one, I'm not sure how well the second one done, but that was around the COVID time, wasn't it? So it doesn't really count. Aquaman did well when that came out. You know, there's been a lot of hype about the Flash film. Zack Snyder's Justice League did well. The Justice League did well when it came out. Obviously, you know, the reviews weren't very good, but it did well. Man of Steel did well when it came out. Batman vs Superman did well. So right, so let's say we get rid of those of this 6. It's like you're taking a big gamble on people who,
yeah,
you know, if say you get brand new actors in, can you promise that they're going to get the same kind of results that these 6 already have?
I mean, either way, it's still going to be DC movies. There's still going to be people that will see it. Saying there's not is it's just stupid talk. Comic book fans will go and watch the movies. It's whether or not people like it's. For me, it's whether or not they're good. Whether or not James Gunn can go, okay, they make an actual cohesive story and kind of compete with Marvel. And it's probably, if anything, this is probably the time to do it, because Marvel's been on a bit of like a backwards and forwards lately, kind of some good moments, some bad moments.
Yeah.
You know, now is the time for them to get their acts together.
Yeah. And to be fair, I'm not sure if it was James Gunn, but someone turned around and said, well, the thing they've got to do is they've got to get the big 3 right. Which is why when that new sort of head producer came out and said, we're not getting rid of Superman and we're not getting rid of Batman, in a sort of character sense, you know, they're not going to get rid of Batman for Batwoman, they're going to bring in a Batman, they're going to bring in a Superman and Wonder Woman. It's like, well, okay, that makes sense, because DC is, despite what, I mean, I can't think of anyone alive who would argue against this point, but the big 3 weapons that DC have against Marvel is Batman, Superman and Wonder Woman, so they have to get those 3 right.
Yeah.
You know, things like Aquaman and Cyborg and Flash and all them, they'll, you know, they do matter, but they're not the most important part. The most important part is the big 3. You have to get those right, because they were the big 3 before Marvel had its big 3. You know, because those 3 characters, as in Captain America, Iron Man and Thor, weren't as big as they were before the MCU. If you'd said big 3 Marvel, people would have said like Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four. You know, the likes of Iron Man, Captain America and Thor wouldn't have even been on that list. Maybe Hulk would have been on. It's kind of like DC's established heroes need to be done properly. But, you know,
I don't know.
Part of me hopes that they do just do the wipe.
I feel like it would be better, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would be sad that we'd be losing the actors, but it would, for me, it's like, I would respect the decision a lot more.
Yeah. Because the next DCEU movie that's coming out is Flashpoint. It's the perfect time to do it. If their idea is to go, right, we're cleaning the slate, there's going to be the independent DC movies, your Batmans, your Jokers.
Yeah.
But then there's going to be the continuity one. And we're wiping the slate clean, we're getting all new people in. You know.
I know, but God help them if they, like, stop doing the Batmans or they stop doing the Jokers.
No.
Because they've probably been some of the best movies that they've done recently, aside from, like, the Suicide Squad and stuff like that. Just not even, like, close, like, farly superior.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not to say they couldn't do, like, crossovers if they go down the route of, like,
a multiverse.
Yeah. You know, they could quite easily do that. it just depends on, I guess, the main universe that they're going to be doing.
Yeah. Good.
Who are Henry
Yeah.
Cavill?
So yeah, that was us talking about DC. Just want to do a quick video where we give our opinions. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Yeah, as far as films go, we're going to be watching the animated universe, the one that started in 2013, because it's awesome.
Right. I'm pretty sure I've seen some of that.
I don't think you have.
I think you've shown me some bits. I must have, because you've had it on the TV when I've been in.
Well, we'll see.
Or at least you've told us about it in depth, because you have your fangirl moments where you watch it and you go, oh my god, it's so awesome.
Well, I do love the DC animated.
I know.
universe.
Or you're like, watch this, look how cool this is.
That's definitely the thing that DC has over Marvel at the minute. The animated movies are flawless. So we're going to watch the 2013 continuity, which stopped last year. I think it ended last year.
Right.
And we will watch the independent ones as well, things like The Dark Knight Returns, which is really cool, and some of the other ones. But yeah, that was us talking about the state of DC. Like the videos, subscribe, ding the bell to be notified when we upload. We upload every day. Anything else you want to say?
Do you think there's a current actor, like well-known actor, that could play Superman?
No.
Do you not think there's one that even?
No. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's either someone brand new who comes in and does a really good job and surprises me, and he becomes Superman to me, or he'll forever be compared to Henry Cavill, and I'll never give him a chance.
Yeah.
Do you think there is, like?
No, that's the issue. It's gonna have to be an unknown actor.
I saw someone say Austin Butler, and I was kind of like, well, the thing is with Austin Butler now is I can only see him as Elvis. I can't see Elvis flying around in a Superman suit. I mean, he's a good actor.
Talk about typecasting.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I get what you mean though. But I mean, it just depends on the quality of the actor. But Henry Cavill he just looked like Superman. He's just big. He's not even have to be particularly muscular. He was just big built.
Yeah.
Devilishly handsome.
And the thing is as well is that what period of Superman's life are you going to choose? Are you going to choose when he's first starting out as Superman? Because even Henry Cavill's start as Superman started him in his very late 20s at the most.
You got flashbacks to his teen years, didn't you?
Yeah. But it was but then following that he was in his 30s, so it was like, are you going to get a teenage Superman? Are you going to get a 20-year-old Superman?
I doubt they would go that far back.
I know you always place Superman as being in his 30s, don't you? And it's kind of like, well, is there anyone in that age bracket who looks more like Superman than Henry Cavill?
That's the annoying thing, is that he's not even old.
Nah.
But for some reason, Hollywood thinks that once you go like in your mid-30s, you become like decrepit and you have to like be replaced by like a 17-year-old.
I know.
It's so sad.
I hope they don't do something like that. I hope
They might do like 20s, like early, like late 20s. Is what I imagine. That would probably be like the go-to, wouldn't it?
I would have thought so, yeah.
So they can get quite a few years out of the actor.
I really hope not. It's depressing. It's depressing. Thank you for watching.
Be like Henry Cavill.
I need to know.